Have you ever pulled leftovers from the fridge, thinking you were making a smart, healthy choice by reheating a home-cooked meal? It seems like the responsible thing to do. Save time, reduce waste, and stick to foods you know are good for you. But here's a shocking truth. Some of those seemingly harmless reheated foods could be silently undermining your health. We're talking about foods that, when cooked a second time, undergo chemical changes that can lead to digestive problems, inflammation, and even increase your risk of chronic illnesses like cancer or neurological decline. It's something very few people talk about, yet it affects millions who rely on the microwave or oven to warm up yesterday's dinner. This video aims to open your eyes to what happens behind the scenes when certain foods are reheated, especially for those over 50. Your body, particularly as it ages, becomes more sensitive to toxins and dietary stress. That's why it's more important than ever to be informed about these hidden dangers and make better kitchen choices that protect your long-term well-being. Let's start with one of the healthiest foods on the planet, spinach. Loved for its abundance of nutrients, spinach is loaded with iron, vitamin K, antioxidants, and fiber. You'd think it's a no-brainer for boosting your health. But when cooked spinach is stored and later reheated, particularly in a microwave or on high heat, it can undergo a transformation that isn't so innocent. You see, spinach contains natural nitrates, which in their original form are beneficial and help promote blood flow. But under high heat during reheating, these nitrates can break down into nitrites and eventually into nitrosamines, compounds that are well documented in scientific literature as potential carcinogens. This chemical shift doesn't change the color or taste of the spinach, which makes it even more insidious. You could be eating a bowl of what looks like a wholesome, home-cooked vegetable dish, not realizing you're slowly introducing harmful compounds into your system. These nitrosamines over time have been linked not just to gastrointestinal cancers, but also to increased inflammation, which is a root cause of many age-related diseases, including cognitive decline and neurological disorders. Older adults are particularly vulnerable here. As we age, our bodies become less efficient at detoxifying harmful substances. What may have gone unnoticed in your 30s can now trigger discomfort, fatigue, or even more serious health issues. Think of someone who cooks a big pot of spinach soup for the week. By Tuesday or Wednesday, they're reheating a portion in the microwave, never suspecting that the reheating process is converting once beneficial nitrates into potentially harmful nitrosamines. It's not about fear-mongering, it's about being aware of what goes on at the molecular level. Small exposures might not make a difference today or next week, but repeated, cumulative exposure over months or years can have lasting effects, particularly for brain health and digestive stability. So if you want to keep spinach in your life, and you should, opt to eat it fresh or cold. Add it to salads or sandwiches, or eat it lightly cooked, but avoid reheating it multiple times. These are small, realistic steps that can make a big impact. Now let's talk about another common household favorite, potatoes. Few foods are as comforting and universally loved as a warm serving of mashed, roasted, or baked potatoes. But if you're the kind of person who loves cooking in bulk and warming up the leftovers throughout the week, you may want to think twice. The trouble begins when cooked potatoes are left to cool slowly at room temperature or stored improperly. When this happens, they can become a breeding ground for Clostridium botulinum, a dangerous bacterium that thrives in low-oxygen, starchy environments. Ever stored leftover baked potatoes in foil and then reheated them later? That's the perfect setup for this bacterium to flourish. And even if you reheat the potato, the neurotoxins produced by the bacteria aren't necessarily neutralized by heat. These toxins can cause nausea, dizziness, and in serious cases neurological, but that's just the bacterial risk. There's also a chemical change happening inside those reheated spuds. As cooked potatoes cool, their structure shifts. Some of the starches convert into resistant starch. In some contexts, resistant starch is beneficial for gut health, acting like fiber and feeding the good bacteria in your colon. But when those resistant starches are then reheated, particularly using high or uneven heat like a microwave, the risk changes. The once digestible starches can become more difficult to process and potentially harmful, especially to aging digestive systems that may already be compromised. And let's not forget the cumulative impact. For someone in their 60s or 70s with a history of gut sensitivity or inflammation, the seemingly harmless act of reheating potatoes several times a week can contribute to ongoing digestive distress or brain fog. Imagine a typical weeknight. You had roasted potatoes on Sunday, wrapped the leftovers in foil, tossed them in the fridge. On Wednesday, you microwave them for a side dish. They taste fine, maybe a little off, but nothing alarming. But over time, this habit can accumulate harmful compounds and create subtle but chronic inflammation. This, in turn, can contribute to fatigue, trouble focusing, or flare-ups of pre-existing conditions like arthritis or blood sugar imbalances. It's not about never eating leftovers again. It's about handling them differently. Cool potatoes quickly, store them in airtight containers, not foil, and reheat them thoroughly but gently using an oven or stovetop. Or better yet, repurpose them cold into potato salads or cold side dishes where reheating isn't needed. It's about being intentional, not fearful. Next up, let's talk about eggs, a staple in nearly every household. Eggs are nutrient-dense, high in protein, rich in choline, and full of healthy fats that support muscle and brain function. They're cheap, versatile, and ideal for quick meals. But when you cook eggs and then reheat them, especially in a microwave, you're treading into dangerous territory. The issue lies in how egg proteins react to reheating. When cooked the first time, proteins denature and become more digestible. But when those already cooked proteins are reheated, especially unevenly or at high temperatures, they toughen and oxidize. That rubbery texture you sometimes notice in reheated eggs isn't just unpleasant, it's a red flag. What's happening behind the scenes is the oxidation of cholesterol, particularly in the yolk. Oxidized cholesterol, or oxysterols, have been shown in studies to promote inflammation, damage arterial walls, and increase the risk of cardiovascular disease. And once again, inflammation isn't just about your heart. It's also closely tied to cognitive decline, memory issues, and even mood disorders. For older adults who may already be dealing with some level of chronic inflammation or reduced liver and kidney efficiency, these dietary stressors can tip the scales. Picture this. You boil a dozen eggs on Sunday for the week ahead. On Wednesday, you warm one up in the microwave before heading out. It's convenient, fast, and seems like a healthy choice. But what you're doing, in essence, is feeding your body cholesterol compounds that it now struggles more to eliminate or manage. Over time, this can contribute to systemic. To avoid these risks, the best solution is to eat eggs fresh whenever possible. If you batch cook them, hard-boiled, for example, enjoy them cold or room temperature. Add them to salads, make egg sandwiches, or simply eat them as is. If you do need to reheat eggs, do so on the stove at a low temperature to minimize structural damage. Never reheat eggs multiple times, and if they've been sitting in the fridge too long, more than a few days, it's safer to discard them than to risk your health. This might seem like overcaution, but for a body that's aging, these small, thoughtful habits can mean the difference between thriving and simply getting by. Now let's talk about one of the most popular proteins in American kitchens, chicken. It's lean, it's versatile, and it fits into just about every diet plan. Whether you're grilling it for a backyard barbecue, tossing it into a stir-fry, or baking it in the oven for weekly meal prep, chicken is often seen as a health hero. But reheating chicken, especially in the wrong way, can quietly introduce risks that many people overlook. When chicken is first cooked, its proteins are denatured in a way that makes them easier for your body to digest. That's one of the reasons freshly cooked chicken feels light and energizing. It's efficiently broken down by your digestive enzymes. But once that chicken is stored and reheated, particularly using high heat, like in a microwave or oven blast, the structure of those proteins changes again. They become tougher, more resistant, and harder for your digestive system to handle, especially as you age. Older adults don't always have the same digestive fire they did in their 20s or 30s. Enzyme production slows, stomach acid levels drop, and food that's tough to break down can cause bloating, gas, or that all-too-familiar feeling of heaviness after a meal. But beyond digestion, the bigger concern is inflammation. Reheating chicken, particularly multiple times or at high heat, can lead to the formation of compounds called advanced glycation end products, or AGEs. These AGEs are created when proteins and fats interact with sugars under high heat. They're not destroyed by cooking or digestion, and instead enter your bloodstream, where they can promote oxidative stress and low-grade inflammation throughout the body. That kind of chronic inflammation may not produce obvious symptoms at first. You won't break out in hives or spike a fever. But over time, it chips away at your resilience. AGEs have been linked to everything from heart disease and type 2 diabetes to Alzheimer's and cognitive decline. And for someone already managing age-related conditions, even a slight increase in systemic inflammation can make a noticeable difference in how you feel day to day: energy, clarity, even joint comfort. It's all connected. Think of the last time you felt foggy-headed after lunch or unusually tired after what seemed like a healthy meal. It could have been the chicken, not the ingredient itself, but how it was reheated. Picture this. You prep 4 grilled chicken breasts on Sunday. You eat one fresh, store the rest, and then reheat them throughout the week in the microwave. By Thursday, the meat is rubbery, maybe a little dry, but you go with it anyway. What you might not realize is that each round of reheating has degraded the protein structure further and introduced more AGEs into the meal. And those compounds don't just disappear, they accumulate. And if your immune system is already dealing with arthritis, high blood pressure, or any kind of chronic illness, these added inflammatory triggers can quietly make things worse. So how do you enjoy chicken safely? It's not about giving it up. It's about changing how you handle it. Ideally, cook chicken fresh and eat it fresh. If you must store it, cool it quickly and reheat it gently, on the stove top. Or finally, let's talk about a food that many consider a nutritional gem: mushrooms. From creminis to shiitakes, mushrooms are celebrated for their earthy flavor and health benefits. They're packed with antioxidants, fiber, and immune-supporting compounds like beta-glucans. They've even been studied for their potential to protect against cancer and cognitive decline. But despite their benefits, mushrooms are highly sensitive to how they're cooked, and especially to how they're reheated. You see, mushrooms contain a unique mix of proteins, enzymes, and delicate fatty acids. When they're cooked fresh, these nutrients become more bioavailable. Great news for your body. But when mushrooms are stored and then reheated, particularly at high temperatures or multiple times, they begin to break down in ways that aren't so beneficial. One problem is that the proteins and fats in mushrooms are prone to oxidation. When reheated, particularly